Hello, welcome to another episode of Hope. That's hearing other people's experiences of transformation and recovery. And I would really like to introduce to you someone who is very, very special in my life. We've been working together on quite a lot of projects over the years. And he's just an all-round cool dude. This is Spyros. Say hi, and I'm going to hand over to him because he's going to ask me questions.
Hello, Georgie. Well, I'm going to turn it around today. Okay, I'm going to be you, so you're going to be the guest. Okay. Is that going to be okay?
Yep.
Right, because I think there's a lot of people out there who don't really understand what addictions are. Now, somebody that's an addict or was an addict knows what it is, right? Mm-hmm. But for the layperson, like me, there are a lot of unanswered questions, and we kind of make up our own mind. For example, you can just be short with people. Say, well, just pull yourself together. You know, what's wrong with you, right? And that's not helping. But that's not because they're horrible people. It's just they don't understand that they can't. Some people just can't help themselves, right? So I want to ask a few stupid questions, right? For the viewers and any listeners, I just want to make a point that I actually am not stupid.
It's true, he's not.
Although I'm going to ask some stupid questions, okay? Just for the benefit of the stupid viewers.
Okay.
Okay? All right, if there are any out there.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have got an admission, right, that I am an addict. Okay, I'm an addict. I drink. I drink brake fluid, but it's okay because I can stop at any time.
God.
I know.
Dad jokes all day today.
All day. So, all right. On a serious note, okay, I've tried to pigeonhole what addiction is for me. Okay, so that I can better understand it. And the nearest that I could get to an addiction that I can relate to is eating, okay? For me, and I know it's all about dopamine, right? So it's about what the brain injects into the body, which is dopamine, that makes us feel better, right? So we do something, it's a reward system, isn't it? So we do something and then the brain rewards us. So we want to do it again, right? Everyone wants to be praised, right? So if I said, oh, you look beautiful today, right? You can't get enough of that.
True.
Okay, and neither can I, right? Not
you look beautiful today.
Thank you very much. See, I love that. So the dopamine thing, right, leads to a number of questions. Okay, why? The first question I asked was, why don't people just make a dopamine pill, right, and then be addicted to that rather than drugs, right? But the problem with that, of course, is that you get used to it. And you have to keep taking more and more and more. And it's the same thing. That's the addict thing, right? Yeah. I learnt as a magician, and this is really interesting for anyone that isn't a magician, okay? And this is going to, I think, enlighten you a little bit. I've realised that being a magician and performing for someone else creates the dopamine effect in them when they see the magic. But it also creates a dopamine effect in me, creating the magic for them, okay? So that's a lovely, I don't know another situation, another instance where two parties get the dopamine hit, right?
Yeah.
Without actually taking anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So is there such a thing as a good dopamine hit? And I think that's probably as close as it'll get, right? So here's my first question for you, okay? I get that, let's talk about alcohol. It could be anything. It could be drugs. It could be whatever.
Yeah.
The first question that I have for you is let's say with alcohol, okay? It could be anything, but alcohol. Is it a question of drinking regularly and making it a habit that you find hard to break, or is it a dependency, a craving for it in the first place?
Right. So very two very different answers because that's two questions in my head. So
Okay.
obviously, you know, I didn't become an alcoholic overnight. It was something that crept up on me. It was like one bottle of wine turns to two, turns to three, turns to, oh God, it's 24 hours a day. I'm not sleeping. I'm passing out for periods of time. That was so gradual and insidious. It just took about 1 year maybe of accelerating with it and being in denial for me to pass through the door of heavy drinker to an addict. So then the body becomes reliant upon alcohol. And so that's why it's dangerous for chronic alcoholics to go cold turkey, because they could have a fit and die. They could have a seizure. And so it's a very, very nasty place to be in when you're actually in the grips of addiction. But yeah, I would say often it does start out as a habit. I've got people I know who say they had their first drink and it was instant love and off they went. But other people like myself, are like, oh, I'm having a Bacardi Breezer with my girlfriends at like 15 and thinking this is absolutely rank and I hate it. And then like way later on in life, I picked up drinking and I just really, then it was love. And so it's different for everybody, but I can say once you pass through that barrier of addiction and you no longer have control of yourself, your body, you don't have control of your body because you need to put this horrible stuff in you to stop yourself from, you know. So yeah, I think it's probably a bit of both.
Okay. So what's the difference between being an addict and being fanatical about something? So for example, if you like football, okay, you can get obsessive about it. So you cover the walls with football stuff. You can't miss a match. You don't stop talking about it. If there's a match on and somebody wants you to do something else, you're trying to go into a panic because you want to see the match more than anything else. At what point does it stop being fanatical and becomes an addiction, or are they not related?
See, that's the thing. I think they are on the same line. They're parallel with each other. But I think football matches, fanatical behavior, that's probably not going to ruin your life as quickly as going into a blackout and doing God knows what. But there are loads of behavioral addictions. There's sex addiction, there's gaming addiction, there's gambling addiction.
How can you tell if you're a sex addict or just a man?
Is it...
Because
his words, not mine, guys.
Yes, yeah, I know. The PC version of that is, are we not all wired to want sex and as much of it as possible?
Yeah.
And at what point does it become an addiction?
Okay, so this is a layered issue. So obviously human beings, for survival, we have certain needs. We need to, keep warm, keep fed and procreate, right? So the procreation part of us is natural and good. But when somebody like me who has the addictive tendencies, I can use anything to the extreme, to the expense of everything else in my life. And the other person's life, maybe, it's unhealthy dependency on a human instinct is what I'd say.
So basically, I think it'd be fair to say that if it's destructive, is where the line's drawn. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, that's half of it. And I think the other half of it is like, do you feel like you are being taken over by a demon? Or is this still your real choice?
Yeah.
Do you really want to do this? And if the answer is no, but I find myself doing it anyway, you're addicted. That's what I think.
So on the sex line, without being crude, obviously there are lots of different levels of kink and diversions and diversity, and it depends on who you are and what you're about as to what turns you on, right? Some things go beyond acceptable,
Yeah.
right? And I suppose that line of whether or not it's destructive is where it's at, because you can still be kinky or do something that's not the norm, but as long as it's consensual and not hurting anyone, right? I suppose that's where the addictive part becomes, because if you're addicted and have to do something, no matter if it hurts someone, then that's it, right?
You're in trouble.
Am I there?
Yeah, that's it. You're in trouble if you get to that point. Yeah.
Okay.
So if it's all consensual, and it's, my rule of thumb is, if I can go to bed at night not hating myself and able to sleep fairly well, then I've not acted out in my addiction that day, right? So, and I do have to watch for it, because once you get rid of one thing, another thing will pop up, you know. So it's very important to be vigilant of how my actions are affecting other people and myself. Am I okay with that? Did I compromise my natural morals?
Yeah. Because
when you're in your addiction, you don't have the luxury of morals. They're gone.
Yeah, I can see that. So if you're on the road to recovery, right? So you've gone too far. You're on a devastating downhill fall, right? And you need to pull yourself out of that. Is it a case of pulling yourself out of it, or is there something that society can do to help? Because there are stigmas, there are all sorts of reasons why an addict can rebel and say, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So in your experience, what could society do better?
It's a tough one. Well, okay, here's what I think. If there was a little bit more understanding about what addiction actually is and spotting it earlier, then interventions could be made before it becomes a whole society issue. Addicts living on the streets, filling up morgues. It's tragic, and I think if rehab was easily available to more people, some people, it's just as simple like just remove them from the substance, and lots of them will embrace recovery. But there's just not enough resources. There are, recovery centres that you can apply to where you get a grant and you can go for free, but it's anybody who is addicted doesn't have the mental capacity to fill in a bunch of forms. So I'm thinking it would just be really good if there was a little bit more understanding from the medical community about addiction.
There's so many conflicting moral issues on both sides.
Yeah.
Right. And for example, when you have someone, I mean, it's fair to say that an addict needs to hit rock bottom before they know they need help, right? Well, that's a long way down.
And
right?
There's trap doors.
Yeah, and there's a long way down, right? So if you try and help someone who's on the way to becoming an addict, they don't think they need help, right? They're enjoying that journey while it's good. But it's only when it starts to become abusive, right, that they then eventually might feel like they need help. Like, for example, I like cake, right? So I can have a slice of cake and it's nice. Okay. If you give me another slice, I might say, I shouldn't, but I will.
Yeah.
And I have another slice. Now I'm feeling a bit sick.
Yeah.
Right? If I have a third slice, I'm going to later say, never having cake. I'm not touching it again.
Yeah.
I feel terrible.
Well, that's a normal response.
Absolutely. But an addict will go back and have some more cake later, right? The moral dilemma of fixing this, and I'm talking about someone who's not an addict, right? But I'm looking at, say, the blanket and blinkered view of society. In order to help an addict, sometimes we need to bring them into a controlled environment and keep giving them drugs, right? Because we need to wean them off the drugs.
Yeah, that's
right?
the detox.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but that in itself is a little bit of a moral dilemma because you're now giving them the drugs for good, right?
Right.
There are other things that society is doing. For example, in order to curb the spread of AIDS and other illnesses, they create a place where you can go and get a clean needle to do whatever you're going to do. Now, that, again, has a moral dilemma because if you went to a very religious outfit, they'll say that's not good, that's bad, right? But actually, from a society point of view, from a perspective of making it better, you've got to break a few eggs, right? To get to that point. So from that moral dilemma, is it a good idea to teach in schools, right? So I'd very like to take away the stigma that addiction is not only for people that are over there and nothing to do with us. It could be any one of us, right?
Yeah.
Something happens in your life, you then turn to something to make you feel better, and then you're hooked, right? So how would you approach making this more of a mainstream curriculum thing, something that can be taught in schools?
So obviously, we're not going to get to the park bench immediately, and you know, these kids, their parents will hold their hand and march them right past the park bench guy, right? But I would like the park bench guy to come and talk to these kids and tell them how they got there. How did they get to be living on this park bench covered in pee? Because he is not invisible. He's real. And it didn't just happen overnight. He was a little kid just like you. Well, I always wanted to know when I was a kid, like, why? Why? And then as I got given more society, I just took them for granted as invisible people. And so I think, you know, this guy on the park bench, he's not always been on a park bench. And I think let's stop the kids from ending up on that park bench. Get them to talk to them. Tell them what was the journey. Somebody who's recovered already, or is in recovery, would probably be up for telling their story to some kids, you know. And there is a moral dilemma because at what age is it appropriate, right, to talk to kids about that? But you would be surprised, like, how many children have addiction in their family. Some of them were born to addicted mothers, you know. So it is something that's worth acknowledging. It's in the medical manuals. It's called the DCM-5 or something like that. That's the American one. It's recognized as a mental illness now, but that doesn't really make any difference.
From what I know of addiction, it is more mental than anything else because it's not genetic, right? Otherwise, everyone, right? If it's genetic, then only a certain group of people can be addicts, right? And that's not true. If everyone can be an addict, well, there must be something that ignites that. Okay, a need. You need to fill a void, and that need is going to usually be mental. It's going to be something that's happened to you. It's an experience or a life thing, a life experience. So, talking to children about it, because the danger, of course, as well, is that you don't want to turn them onto it. Because you tell them about, well, why did you take it? Oh, it feels fantastic. Oh, okay, maybe
Park bench guy won't be saying that.
Yeah.
He won't.
Now, I've noticed, because I can't help myself, right? Because I look at detail. I overanalyze everything.
I know.
And I look at you, and I know things about you that you give me in terms of signals that you don't know you're doing yourself. But I know one technique you use, right, that I've noticed, to never go back. Right? And that's remembering what it feels like when it was shitty, right? So you do that. Now, you've never said that to me, right? But is that true?
Yeah, of course it is.
You sit back and say, I'm not going back to that because I remember what that was like.
I've genuinely had enough. I think we know when we've had our last drink in our soul.
Yeah.
I thought I'd had my last drink many, many times.
Yeah.
I could have passed the lie detector test. Yeah. But your soul knows when you've...
Yeah.
That's it.
But you've got to the point now where the bad way outbalances the buzz,
The buzz went years ago.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
So isn't that a good technique to teach people to remember when they do something that feels bad, not to do it?
Yeah.
Right. I think that's from a magician's point of view again.
Yeah.
Right. That's a trigger. We'll call that a trigger. Okay.
Oh.
So I would implant that as a trigger so that people think like that, and then they don't do it.
Yeah.
Right? The other thing that I found in general is that there are lots of good things that we can be addicted to, right? Like falling in love, right? That feeling of falling in love is something we all love. Then you get bored of the person, that whole feeling goes, and now you want to be in love again, right? And it's like a perpetual thing. You're not working at a relationship, you're working on just the beginning bit.
It's an extreme. It's
Yeah.
like any extreme end of the spectrum, be it high or low, self-pity, feeling like a measly, horrible person, or like grandiose and not ego.
Yeah.
They both feel bad, right?
Yeah.
So if we are addicted to sex or addicted to the beginning of a relationship, that is not very healthy. So that's like, we want to be in the middle.
So how do we help that? Because there's no better feeling than meeting someone that you think is the one.
Yes,
right?
I've done it many times.
Yeah, and have that whole feeling that you that's it, you're in a fantastic place. Now, you're not hurting anyone, you're not taking substances.
You're hurting yourself.
Yeah, but how do you curb that, and how do you know you're doing it? Is it a matter of doing it several times and then falling and then remembering what it felt like? Is that back to that?
So I've actually had a really recent lesson in this. So I believe that people come into our lives, for a reason or a season. And so I realized that when I got into these relationships in sobriety, because when I was drunk, I didn't care. I did whatever the fuck I wanted, right?
Yeah.
But in sobriety, I reverted back to my mother's behavior when my parents were together when I was a kid. Now, that's very codependent. She had an alcoholic mother, and she's got an alcoholic daughter. Woo. And so I would just not ever ask for help, do everything, be Betsy housewife, kind of like Fanny. And
You better explain what Fanny is, because it sounded a bit wrong then.
Fanny is my 1950s crazy housewife, and everything's just fine. Me and Spiz do it together. We do Fanny together.
Right, let's start again.
Mrs. Fanny Wingrove is a dedicated housewife in the 1950s, and she speaks with a lovely RP in the 1950s BBC. Okay, so yeah, I became like that. And in my head, I had these filing cabinets, like, these are all the things I've ever done for you. And these are all the bad things you've done to me. And I never said a word, right? That's codependence.
That's very Fanny, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was doing it. I did not know I was doing it. And so my last relationship, I've had 3 long-term relationships in sobriety. And the last one, I realized how codependent I actually was, because first of all, he suggested that I might be codependent, and God, did I want to punch him. But then I read a book about it. I'm like, oh my God, this is a thing. It has a name. I don't have to keep doing this. So yeah, if I notice myself behaving in that way and putting myself last and just expecting people to shower me with praise for something that they never asked me to do, then I know that I'm in trouble.
So is codependency like as in both people are in that need, or is it just the one person who is? So both of them are in that problem, right?
There is a concept called the Karpman drama triangle. Okay. So there's 3 points in this triangle.
Yeah.
So we've got,
as in all triangles.
Yeah. we've got the perpetrator, right? So that's the drunk or the boyfriend who's, just being a bit of a bully.
Okay.
The victim, who is like the person who is like at the brunt, getting the brunt of the bully, and then the rescuer, who's like, oh well, I'll save you because you've drunk too much. I'll do all this and that for you. But then they become the victim.
So the rescuer and the victim are the same person?
Yes,
Okay.
but it's a journey.
Okay.
So it's two people. Yeah. So in this triangle at any time, and then when the victim who used to be when the victim who used to be the rescuer gets pissed off, they are then the perpetrator. Look at all that I've done for you. Da, 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 da. And so all of it is extremely unhealthy, but very easy to not know that you're doing. So if I ever get into another relationship, not planning on it for a bit, but I will be very vigilant of that stuff because, there's a reason. There's a reason why there's a whole recovery group dedicated to it.
Okay, I wasn't going to go there, but seeing as we're here now, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to put you on the spot. Okay, do you think that you replace one addiction with that codependency? Is that what it is? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
So basically, we're substituting one for the other.
That's right.
Okay. So the next question I have to ask you is there a good substitution? Like the codependency isn't, okay?
No.
Okay. But from my logical mind, I kind of think, okay, well, if I'm going to lose this, I want to get something else to fill that hole, right? So what do I use instead of that? For example, if you're an alcoholic and no, let's not do that. Let's talk about smokers, okay? You're a smoker, and then what you do is you give up smoking, and now you chew gum, right? So you're chewing gum instead of smoking cigarettes, okay? You're replacing one habit with another one.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a habit.
Which is a lesser habit.
Right.
Okay. So is that the deal? We're always going to be replacing it with another habit.
Okay. So habits are replaceable. Yeah. But if it's an addiction, it has to be that hole in the soul cannot be filled by anything outside of you. It's an inside job. Okay. So for me, I didn't notice about the codependence, but I had an inkling because I knew that there was a hole in my recovery somewhere. Yeah. I knew that because I felt it in my gut. I felt like there was still a piece of me that was not very fulfilled. And it takes a lot of inner work and healing and discovery to find ways of filling that hole that wasn't actually even empty really to begin with. It's just that we got used to anesthetizing ourselves with whatever we could. So now my hole is filled with the desire to help others, creativity, looking after my parents. It's all that stuff that when I was younger, I was like, I'm not going to be a fucking do-gooder. But really, it's like, actually, that's the only sustainable happiness is getting out of self, not in a codependent way. So getting out of it used to be me, like getting out of it, but now it's like getting out of me thinking about myself all the time.
From what you just said just now, dare I say that all the things you just described are actually therapy, right? So what you're doing is you're creating a self-therapy in doing things that, one, are good, make you feel good, so you're getting your dopamine hit, but you're also in control of that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not doing something that you have to keep doing because it's an addiction. You can't stop loving your mum and your dad, right? That's not an addiction, right? Because there's no bad coming from it, right?
Yeah.
Right. So it isn't about giving things up.
No.
It's about being in control.
Yes, it's about being in control, and it's not about giving things up because it's about creating a way of life where anesthetizing oneself is no longer necessary.
Great, yeah. I find myself, if I said to you, now, I question myself whether I was addicted to coffee, okay? Because I edit a lot of video and stuff like that, and I'm on the computer all the time. So my safety blanket is a mug of coffee.
Yeah.
Always there, right? So I edit. Now, you shouldn't stay in front of a screen very long, okay? You should have breaks, regular breaks.
But you don't.
And my timing for that regular break is when that coffee's over.
Ah.
Right? So I end up taking a break, getting up, away from the screen, making myself a new mug of coffee, and I found myself throwing more away than I drink because I don't actually want the coffee, but the safety blanket of the mug being there with the coffee in it. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that I found fascinating for me because I realised I'm not addicted to coffee. I'm addicted to the comfort of it being there, right? Okay.
It's your little friend.
Yes. Yeah. Right. So, in that same essence, if we replace the coffee with anything else, it can be another recovered addict that's your friend. You now have that cup of coffee in another person who understands you and who has been there and isn't going to judge you the same way as maybe other people might. Okay. Yeah. So at what level does an addict realize that they need that something else to be there? I mean, children have teddy bears, right? Yeah. Right? That's my mug of coffee. Yeah. I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You're used to it.
Yeah, so it's something I go to. Now that, we've all heard of like a blanket, their children have a favourite little blanket and whatever. But it's all about, I think, at the end of the day, it's all about creating that safety net where you're safe and you know that if all else fails, you've got your teddy.
Yeah.
Or in my case, although I don't need the security of the coffee, it's not going to save my life, it's not going to make me happier, but somehow it comforts me, right? Because otherwise, if I was addicted to it, I'd be drinking it.
Yeah.
Am I addicted to making it?
I don't think you should worry about that, but I get what you're saying. I think it's a habit you've got into, and I know that you spend hours and hours and hours editing, and what you asked me about, like, should you replace it with another person? Is that right?
No, is that a commonplace thing where people that have been addicts and recovered will affiliate themselves with like people? That's
how you stay well. You stay well.
So support.
Yes, so that's an exchange of dopamine again, right? And it's healthy because I relied on other sober women, when I first got well, and now I'm carrying that, paying that forward with other girls. So, like, I really, really think that is such an important part. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And I always used to think, oh my God, like, I'm such a burden and all this. But really, I was helping my mentor with her own recovery. So that's how it works.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Which leads me on to, I can't help it. I just can't help it, right? But it's the way my mind works. So let's suppose you're a sex addict, and let's suppose somebody else is a sex addict, and there's another one over here, and there's another one there, and they all go to a group, right? They all go to a sex addicts group.
Oh, right. I thought you meant a different group.
Yeah, a sex addicts group, right? Like you would with any other kind of group, right?
Yeah.
So they all go to this group, right, in order to seek recovery. How do they ever get out of the getting together part? Because you've now got a room full of sex maniacs, right?
Yeah.
Right? So how do they ever... You can't do that, can you?
Okay, so often what happens in some recovery groups is there's a mass relapse. That can happen, right? But what is really good about any form of recovery group is that everybody who's walked through those doors wants to not do it, right? So people will be further along in, like, their recovery of their sex addiction, for example. And if there's dodgy behavior happening, then somebody with a lot of years of recovery will intervene and stop it.
Okay.
So that's...
I know I was being a little bit funny.
No, right. It's all right.
But it's a good question, though, right?
It is. It's good, and it's relevant because, I would be very confused about that as well. I mean, it would be like, I guess, me walking into a room full of, drunks.
It's a great plot for a porno movie, isn't it?
God.
What you do is you have this rehab type situation with all sex addicts.
Yeah.
Right? And then it turns into an orgy. Right?
I mean, there's room for it in the market, I'm sure.
It's a great idea. Write that down. No, so
Put it on the screen.
So yeah, so I suppose the answer is that they genuinely do want to recover, and if someone's about to fall,
Yeah.
somebody that's stronger in their time period,
Yes,
will be there for them to help.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
That's how it should be. Unfortunately, sometimes in certain groups, people who have a lot of time will prey on new people, and that is not very nice. But on the whole, it's, you know, it's like the camaraderie you get if a ship is drowning, right? So everybody's like...
Sinking.
A ship is sinking, yes. So like everybody is like helping each other if they're the maid or they're like the captain or the first class or steerage or whatever. I'm thinking about Titanic right now.
Yeah.
Like that is camaraderie, right? So we all have a common enemy, which is not drown.
Yeah.
And so that's how it can work.
Okay. Complex, isn't it?
It is.
It's complex. So the message, I think, when we go back now, rewind back to a question as what society can do, it's tolerance, isn't it? It's,
to an extent.
Yeah, it's have that tolerance because it's a given that an addict might fall, not once, but twice.
I've
but not
fallen
to give
many
up.
times.
Yeah, but not to give up on them.
Yeah.
Right.
No one's hopeless.
So that tolerance is all part of the healing, right? It's all part of the journey. It's really interesting stuff.
But don't co-sign people's bullshit. So like there will be people that will take kindness for weakness, right? And if someone is very sick with their addiction still, there is a good chance that they might say the right things.
They'll abuse you. Yeah.
So it's really difficult. But I think when somebody has reached the end of the road, genuinely, they will do whatever it takes. I did whatever it took, you know, and hopefully if they manage to reach that place, they'll get the help that they need, or at least be pointed in the direction of the help that they need, because there's actually not that much knowledge around about what to do. But there are plenty of resources out there, or you just have to look on the internet, just Google it. And there's people right now waiting to help you.
Yeah. So if you are suffering from any addiction, it's fair to say that help is there as long as you realize that you can get that help and that you need that help.
Yes, and you want that help.
Yeah.
Genuinely
want it. Do you remember when we were filming the Fanny stuff, right?
Yes.
Fanny business, and it was a Christmas episode. Okay?
Yes.
Now, I was in a really difficult predicament because I had an idea for a scene where Fanny is having a Christmas drink and giving her Christmas message to the audience. And the joke, of course, the humour was derived from her slowly getting pissed till the end where she's completely incoherent and right. And I was so, what's the word?
Nervous.
Not nervous. I was very
mindful.
Yeah, very mindful that I didn't want to push you over the edge because playing the part of someone drinking and then getting drunk, having been an alcoholic, might be the best, right? So, so if you remember, I don't know if you remember how well you remember.
I was sober. I remember everything.
But how much do you remember the conversation leading up to it?
Oh, no, you were very cautious and considerate, and like, do you think you can handle this?
Yeah.
And
now, I was really, really concerned, but I must admit, at the end, I was so impressed because you played it beautifully. It was very, very believable, very real.
Got experience,
of course. But you were really strong through it, and I knew that moment because I've invited you to places in the past, and I know there's going to be people drinking, so I've had to say to you, listen, there's going to be drink and stuff. Are you going to be okay? And you've said, to your credit, no, I'd rather not. Right, in this instant, right, and then one day you said, you know what, I think I'm okay, right, and you came out. And you left a little bit earlier, but because you did as much as you could do, right? And I've always been careful to put you on tables where people are not drinking, right? But I now know, though, you're over the worst of it. And I know you're handling life differently and you've opened up. So I'm only mentioning this because if there's anyone out there who's feeling helpless, and, you know, I'm not an addict and I can't begin to understand, right? But I can empathise and I can learn, and I've seen it with you, right?
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to say that because your testimony to it works, right?
Yeah.
Right? The system works.
If you want it enough, you will go to any lengths. And I really believe that. There's no excuse. You know, I don't care how busy you are. If you're busy enough to mess your life up, then you can be busy enough to get better. And I think that episode of Fanny Business where Fanny got drunk, because Fanny's getting drunk, I'm not, right?
And you were drinking Ribena, to be fair.
Yeah, it was Ribena, guys. Okay. But yeah, it was actually quite fun, like to sort of remember like how sloppy it would make me, and then it was like at the end of it.
Shall we show them?
Yes, let's show them a
Shall
clip.
we show them a clip? Let's show you a clip.
Roll VT. I don't think they believed that for one moment. Righto. Ready?
We'll be take it a bit easy now, Miss Wingrove. You're going to be plastered by the end of this.
I don't take orders from you.
Oh, sorry.
I'm very fed up now. Just going to close my eyes for a minute.
Miss Wingrove,
Yes.
can we do one more, please?
Yes, of course. I was waiting for you. Do I look fantastic? So yeah, it was really fun because then it's like, oh, I'm me again, you know, and that is the fun of acting, isn't it? So I really enjoyed that one, and yeah, it was. I like playing drunk. Wouldn't do it again in a hurry, but yeah, it was nice. I was in a safe place. I was with you, and I knew that, you know, I was going to be okay. And then I laughed my ass off.
Yeah, no, it was fun.
Yeah.
But, so let's get back to some other areas, okay? Like I gave you an example just now of the smoking and the gum, right? If it was ordinary gum, right, that's just replacing one thing with another. But if you're replacing smoking with nicotine gum, okay, you're getting rid of the smoking habit, okay, which is the addiction. It's an addiction because there's bad from it, right? You could die. It's just not. There's lots of things that.
It's gross.
Yeah. Right. But replacing it with nicotine gum, okay, is, I think, just the next step, right? It's not the replacement. You're not filling that hole. You've made a hole. You've got rid of the cigarette, and now you've replaced it with the nicotine gum. But at some point, you've got to get rid of that.
Yeah.
Right? But otherwise, you've just got another addiction, right? You're going to be... So, is that a case of moderation? Slowly wean off until you're off. That's the route, isn't it? You can't go cold turkey.
No.
Right? So
some people can.
Yeah.
But usually the general advice is to gradually stop these things. So yeah, nicotine gum would be part of the journey.
Yeah. So how do you feel about gambling as an addiction? Now,
I don't like it.
No, but where does that... I mean, if I had to choose an addiction... right,
choose your addiction.
Yeah, that's a good... Hey, the game show.
Woo!
Welcome to Choose Your Addiction.
Sex addiction tonight.
Yeah. So, that's another good idea. Write that down. So, so if you, devil's advocate, if you had to choose your addiction, because you have to have an addiction, right? That's the deal.
Okay.
Right? So you wouldn't choose heavy drugs.
No.
They're bad, right? You wouldn't choose alcoholism. I think that's bad too, right? But that's like devastatingly bad. But all of these addictions are expensive,
Yes.
right? So even the smoking is expensive. Just by default, they put the price up to stop you from smoking, but
Yeah.
you don't. You just pay the money.
Yeah.
Right. Same as Sadiq Khan charging us for everything instead of fixing it. Right. Oh, well, you're going to pay. You're going to pay congestion charge to stop congestion. You're not. All you're getting is people paying to go in and do the congestion bit again. So it's not fixing it. It's just taxing it. So everything's expensive. So gambling, right, equally as an addiction is expensive. And all of these things can devastate your life. Is there an addiction, right, that's low on the level of everything that is still not good for you, but would be the choice?
So addiction in any form, like I've cross-addicted into other things plenty of times, right? Especially in rehab, where they take away your substances, they take away everything. And so then what I used to do was find the nearest attractive man.
Okay.
And then that would be it. I wouldn't get my therapy. I had cross-addicted fully into that. And so anything that is damaging yours and your people's lives is not good. I wouldn't choose to be controlled by anything, because that's what it is. You're being controlled. So if you are a gambler, you know, you might be down to selling your kidney. And that can ruin people's lives. It really annoys me when I see those adverts on TV for the phone gambling, and they portray it as like these people like in a fete having fun. And it's like, really, it's just a miserable person alone in the dark on their phone, losing.
Well, I can tell you that from my personal experience, okay, someone who used to gamble a lot, right? And then somebody said to me, the trouble with you is that you're addicted, right? And I took affront to that. And
I bet you did.
I thought, hold on a minute. No, I'm not. I'm not addicted. I could give up like that. And I did. I just didn't go.
See?
Right? Yeah. But I get where the addiction is, because you can't beat that feeling when you're winning, right?
Yeah.
But the reason I was able to give it up was because I could do all the things that it gave me, which was, from my perspective, it wasn't going to the bookies. It was going to a very expensive casino.
Yeah.
And they fed me well.
Right. It was an event.
They gave me the best food for free.
Ooh.
And drinks and anything I wanted. And then they treated me like a pop star. And then I'd put some money on the table and play. And if I lost, my inner mechanism to make it okay was, well, I've just got a free meal.
Yeah.
That was worth 300 quid. So if I lose 500 pounds, I've had 200 pounds of entertainment. And I justify it, right?
Yeah.
And actually, it worked for me at that point, right? But then I thought, you know what, I can still have that meal with the money that I'm gambling. If I win, it's not changing my life. Now, it would change my life, I think, if I was in a different situation and needed the money.
Yeah.
Right? But I was able to give up because the buzz wasn't big enough, right? But I was watching people I used to go with, who we used to, a long time ago, we used to spend £100 gambling, right? It was a lot of money. And then it became 2, 3, 4, then it became £1,000, right? And what it is the more it becomes, the more exciting it is, because the fear of losing is greater.
Yeah.
Right? So gambling, right, is, if not controlled, now it can be a way of life, right? It could be James Bond, right? You walk in, you're dressed nicely, you have a great time, you meet a nice girl, you have a great meal, and it's all lovely, it's all glamorous, right? That's one thing, but not everyone is in that world. And
exception, isn't it?
Yeah, and when the gambling becomes problematic and you lose your house and your kids and your wife and all the things that, right? So it's fair to say that no matter what the addiction is, there can be no choice. There is no choice. We can't actually say which addiction would you choose.
No, of course not.
Right? Because it isn't a case of the best of a bad lot because they're all bad lots, right?
They are.
Right.
And some will kill you quicker than others, right?
Yeah.
But I know people who, were in recovery from alcohol, had really great recoveries, and then started buying scratch cards, and one thing led to another, and before you know it, they're in the casino and they're having a drink because they've lost. It's all the same beast.
The worst thing about a gambling addiction, as opposed to alcoholism, is that gambling tends to hurt lots of other people in your life.
Yeah.
Well, you can be, I've got a friend. This is a true story, right? I won't name him, right? But it's a true story. You know him. His father was a gambler, right? And because of that, he won't gamble. He won't, right? But his father was a bad gambler, right? One day, his mum went up to the bathroom and the bath was gone. Right?
Whoa.
He sold the bath, right?
What?
I know. How bad is that, right? It's the worst. You've got a family in the family bathroom and the bath is missing. Right?
What?
Because he sold it to pay for his gambling.
Was it marble?
Right? I don't know.
I bet it was.
It
Anyway,
might have been cast iron. It might have been, I don't know. But the fact is, though,
That's crazy.
That I know that the mentality, that whole thing about, well, I just got a free meal, so it's not really
justification.
Gambling. It's not really gambling, right? There's another side of it where you say, I'm going to sell the bath, I'm going to get the money, and then I'll just buy another one.
Yeah.
Right? I'll win and I'll buy another one. It's not a problem. And they actually do believe that.
We tell ourselves all kinds of lies.
That's right. So, how does that apply to substances?
Okay.
Right? Because with the gambling, you've got the prospect of replacing the bath because you might win.
Okay,
Right? So where's the payback?
So, this is all about self-justification, the lies we tell ourselves, denial, all that stuff. So I would tell myself things like, oh, well, I'm not drinking as much as she is, so it's all right. And then, oh, well, I haven't shagged anybody's husband yet, so that's all right. And then slowly but surely, all of the boundaries end up being crossed.
And you've always got another reason why it's okay.
Yeah, but I can compare myself to somebody else. I would surround myself with people who could drink a lot more than I could. I'm a lightweight alcoholic. I used to, use cocaine as well because that made me able to drink more. And I would say, well, I haven't sold my body yet, so I'm not that bad. And then everything that you said that you wouldn't do happens.
Becomes another excuse.
Yes, and eventually you just can't justify anything anymore. So that's when the wheels come off, and that's when I became what I said I never would be, which was the 24 hours a day top-up drinker. And that is not fun. And it's dangerous to stop cold turkey when you're like that, because your body becomes dependent on it. And so, you in the casino saying, well, I got a free meal, That's me saying, oh, well, I haven't slept with anybody for money to get booze. And it's like, you managed to stop yourself because you have the mechanism in your brain. We had Will on a couple of weeks back and told me all about this. The frontal cortex, or the front lobe, is intact. When an addict puts something in their body, it shuts down. You're on fight or flight stuff. So it's like, if I don't get a drink, I will die.
Okay. That's
serious. And so, it sounds like, Spiz, you don't have addiction, and I am very happy for you.
Well, I'm not showing off. I'm sure I'm bordering on addiction, food addiction, because I'm finding myself binge eating. Right. And the fact that I'm conscious of it is the reason why I won't do it.
You've outed yourself.
I'm going to stop. Yeah. Because I know I need to, right? But I found myself doing it more and more and more. And then I thought, how easy this is? This is really easy. My sister used to work for the ambulance service.
Yes.
And her speciality was bariatrics.
Oh.
Do you know what bariatric is?
Is that like the band, like the
No.
gastric band?
No, a bariatric is the next thing from obesity. It's the next thing up.
Oh.
Right. So these people are so in such a bad way. They're in bed all the time.
Yeah.
And they can't leave the room. They can't get up. They can't do anything. That's it. If they need to go to hospital, for example, this is what my sister used to do. They take the windows out. They get a cherry picker. They pick them up with a crane and take them out. A whole nightmare because they can't go down the stairs because they're too big.
Oh.
And the other thing is you can't manoeuvre them without ensuring their safety.
I had no idea she worked with them.
Yeah. My sister's a superhero.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah. And all through COVID, she was
I remember,
out there every 10-hour days, every night. you know.
God.
So
So she literally airlifts them out sometimes.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And but that is a whole different thing. Right?
That's addiction for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is it just an addictive thing, or it's back to the mental thing?
Yeah.
There's a void mentally that is they're finding comfort.
Yes.
And that comfort is
Dopamine.
coming. Yeah. It's all back to the same thing. So it's all the excesses.
Yeah.
Leads me on to, okay, that I can, for example, I'm talking personally because I can only draw on my own experiences, right?
Okay.
So I'm trying to understand the other side of the fence.
Okay.
I know that if I were to give up sweets, chocolates, cakes and everything, I can do it, right? I would be a bit more miserable.
Yeah, you'd be grumpy, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but I would do it. I could do it, right? I could do it. And then at the end of it, I know that I can probably have a Mars bar and not have to eat loads, right?
Wow.
Now, could an addict, let's say you, because you're here, right? It could be anybody.
Exhibit A.
Yeah, Exhibit A. Could you, having killed everything,
Killed everything.
Yeah, you're not drinking, you're not doing it right. You're now on the straight and narrow, and you're fixed. Could you have a glass of wine and that's it? No.
Absolutely not.
Right.
I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Neural pathways, right? So the dopamine reward system, that has been so heavily ingrained in my brain that I've had 4 years for the neural pathways to close up, right?
Okay.
So once I had a relapse about 7 years ago, I've been trying to do this for a long time, and I just shoved this chocolate in my mouth. I was a greedy pig. I didn't even chew the thing. And before I knew it, the neural pathways were zoom, because it was basically just alcohol. And so that led me to a relapse, because if I have even a drop of that shit in my system, it's off to the races.
Okay.
It can be, right? So I'm very careful about what I eat and drink now, but if I did ingest something now with the amount of time that I have, I would obviously be horrified because I don't want a repeat of that. And it puts me right into the feeling of craving.
Yeah.
So it makes me crave it pretty much immediately. And so I don't want to gamble with that, because it would be a gamble. And what's really insidious about my drinking is that usually I'll get a few goes where it's all right. And I think, oh, that was in my past. I can be a normal person. No. You just snowball, and before you know it, you're in hospital having tried to kill yourself. So that's where it takes me. So now if I want to have a glass of wine at any point, I can have a glass of wine, but I know what's going to happen.
The next question I think that follows from that, because we've established that it's most of the illness is mental. So it's fixing a mental void, be it being unhappy, being whatever it might be, pressure, trauma. It could be any amount of things, right? So is it what would happen if somebody were to give you a meal that had wine in it and you didn't know it had wine in it? Mm-hmm. Would you just eat it and not have the triggers that a glass and lifting that glass would have? Or would the chemical bit still kick in?
Okay, that is a good question. And I've I've had that happen to me. The truth is, I think I've probably eaten things with wine in, and I did notice I felt a bit strange afterwards. You know, that kind of
Yeah.
really, oh my God, like I'm losing control here. But I'm able to pull myself back now quicker than I used to. Because that thing when I ate the chocolate, like I was only like a month in, right?
Yeah.
So I can eat things that have alcohol in, but I avoid it as much as I can.
So the chemical bit does affect you. It's not just the trigger.
It's the chemicals.
It's not just the visual. Yeah.
Oh no,
Okay.
no. So like obviously the quantity in a dish that's burnt off usually, you know, nothing really whacks me around the head that I've eaten, and I'm very careful with desserts because they seem to put booze in all desserts now.
Yeah.
So
Ice creams, all sorts.
chemical reactions, yeah, they're still very real, but I've had more recovery time and new neural pathways to develop to know that, this is a dangerous thing. I'm going to stop doing that now. And that's it. And then I don't interpret it as meaning like I'm going to have a relapse or go into like a shame spiral, because that only hurts me. That only makes me obsess. And when I get into that place, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't crucify myself for, you know, eating something that has been cooked in wine. But if I see it on the menu that it's cooked in wine, I just won't order it. Yeah.
That's sensible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I've learned so much.
Me too.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. So hypnosis.
Oh, yes.
Have you ever experienced any hypnotherapy?
No.
Has that ever occurred to you?
Yes. So it's been suggested to me a few times actually.
Yeah.
Like when I couldn't stop drinking. And I know that it's very good for a lot of people, and I can see how it would work. I think that I would respond very well to it actually. And you know, I'd like to just do it as an experiment.
Yeah. I heard that meditation helps.
Oh yeah.
Because you're obviously going somewhere inside yourself.
Yeah, it's an inside job.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't done any meditation, you should.
Yeah.
It's better than sitting around doing nothing.
But that joke.
No, but it is that thing, isn't it? Is that finding that calm
Space between your thoughts.
and the right therapist would also create that same calm and teach you how to go to a safe place within yourself.
Breath work is good.
And so that's an interesting thing to explore. So yeah, I think we've done as much as I think we can do now. I'm pretty much I've got a lot to think about.
Yes,
still,
and I'm going to watch that episode of Fanny that we did together, because it was so much fun, and I'm looking forward to doing more of that. So thank you so much for coming in and asking me the questions. I couldn't think of anybody else that I'd let ask me these questions.
Hey. Well, you were the perfect guest on your own show.
So, well, you say goodbye then.
Okay.
Because you're the host.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. And Georgina Bailey, thank you so much. Oh. And make sure you tune in for the next episode.
Mwah. Yay! Yeah. Thanks, Biz.
Hey, that was good.
Yes.